really happy past San Diego State graduate. I graduated in the early 80s, 1981. And I've really, been involved with the Corky McMillan Center for Real Estate and having the chance to chair the advisory board and work with, students is probably one of the most rewarding things for someone in your career to be able to, like my dad always said, there's more fun in the doing than what you've done. So it's fun to be able to give back and work with so many of you that are just at that time in your life when you can make such a difference in how you decide to move forward. So it's kind of ironic, we're talking to an entrepreneur society and a real estate society right now for the most part. And I mean, how many people do we have then on the line or now?
30.
30. Okay. Um, Again, I'll do a quick snippet on myself, and then kind of talk about kind of maybe more general worldly things that are probably more exciting to you, because I'm sure you hear from lots of people that come in, they tell you that they were born in the Midwest and were one of 5 children and had to walk through the snow when they were kindergarten, 2 miles to school, because there was 5 kids and the dad had 1 car that was a salesman. And I'll tell you, it was uphill both ways. So you know that I'm teasing, right? But no, that's truly, I'm from North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota. Great place to be from, the Midwest. Thank God my dad was the #1 salesman for a company called IBM, International Business Machines, back in the late 50s and early 60s. And we got to move off the farm and move to Disneyland, which was Corona del Mar in Orange County in the early 60s. And in the early 60s, the beach cities, whether they were Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Leucadia, Cardiff, they were all the same. They were all small beach communities. And my dad just happened to get transferred out to open the new offices in Long Beach and Anaheim. So we moved to Disneyland and life changed. A few years later, my dad joined Coldwell Banker, saw that the average Coldwell Banker salesman, this was in 1963, was making $32,000 a year. These were the top average salesmen for that company. And after being in management with the international IBM, he was making $30,000 and had 5 kids, and it was time to make a change. Again, my dad had never worked for anybody. He was always an entrepreneur out of college, and then went to work for CB up in the Newport Beach office, which was back in those days, the big salesmen all came from the big computer companies, or computer companies to be, IBM, Burroughs, Xerox. Those are the companies that had training programs in place, put salesmen on the ground. The rest of the companies hadn't really caught up to that yet. So he then went over to work for CB, became one of their top salesmen, and then formed his own company in 1968. And that company was called Newport National Corporation, which is the company that my brother and I still own and manage. And so that company has been in existence now since 68. So what is that? Going over a little over 50 years. We're the 2nd generation. We did not ruin the company. We actually grew the company. And 2 of my brother's sons, Mason Brusseau and Dalton Brusseau, both graduated from San Diego State, one 2 years ago and one 3 years ago. And they're out in the world learning what to do. And hopefully someday they join us. And then we have G3 taking the company and maybe taking it to 75, 80 years and beyond. So, I I chair the Corky McMillan Center for Real Estate Advisory Board today, which is a really fun group. We work a lot with the dean. We work with Kamal, for those in the business school, in trying to create, like you guys do in the Lavin Center, trying to work with curriculum, job placement, mentorship, uh, helping the students understand interview skills, helping them get internships, helping them get jobs. So that's kind of the volunteer job. And again, kind of on the company, and I'll finish it quickly because it's just, I don't really like talking about myself that much, but we've built about 6 million square feet of ground up development as an entrepreneurial company. And when you figure most projects are 100,000 square feet, it's we built a lot of different real estate, and we've focused for the last 20 years only in San Diego County. You know, like there's always different business plans, right? There's the old Neiman Marcus experience before they went down, which was all about service and high markup. And then you go to the Costco alternative, which is mass volume and low markup. So that just different strategies. And in the real estate industry, we chose to stay in a geographic area, that being San Diego County, and get to know and invest in local community through the chamber, through the EDC, get to know the mayor, elected officials, senior staff members, and do kind of a myriad of different projects and product type as the market changes. Imagine, you know, what San Diego looked like in the late 60s and the early 70s in North County. Literally, there were still cowboys and Indians. No, not quite, but almost. And compared to where it is today. So if you focus in a geographic area, we learned and adapted, and we've developed anything from a neighborhood shopping center to a power center, which like a Walmart, Target, Ross, kind of 800,000 square foot type of shopping center, to corporate headquarters, to condominiums, to apartments, office buildings. But for the last 20 years, we've pretty much focused on corporate headquarters and employment spaces. And I tell you, one of the great things about being an entrepreneur and being in the real estate, because real estate is just a widget that we're producing as an entrepreneur. And so most real estate companies, real estate's a local company. And we usually attract capital from a regional or national basis, but it's a local person's market, much like creating anything that you in the entrepreneur side are creating your new widget. It's just it's a thing that you produce, and you just continue to perfect that over time. So I don't know if there's anything kind of more about me that I can share, but I'm happy if anybody has any questions at this point. And otherwise, I kind of want to talk about kind of maybe life and life skills and some lessons learned if people are interested.
What kind of real estate, you might have mentioned it, but I might have missed. What kind of real estate are you in? Are you in commercial or housing? And
Yeah,
housing?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that, and then my follow-up to that is, do you think real estate is in a decline? Because I've saw a lot of things about young people, like millennials, not being as interested in owning big homes. And I saw commercial real estate is dying because of like people figuring out technology is figuring out ways that like during this pandemic that we don't need to meet face to face every day. So I'm just wondering how real estate agents have combat this and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Good question. So what's the single biggest asset that 90% of Americans own?
Their house,
Son of a gun. They're what?
their properties.
Right. And what is that? Is that real estate?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So real estate's not maybe in a total decline. And if you look, I mean, like if I were one of you as a young professional, I think one of the most important things as you transition from where you are to where you want to go is having strong mentorship. And we're, the surveys first came out because I'm in employment space, so I can direct that better more than housing. But I will tell you that, I mean, housing, if you look at the for sale, attached and unattached homes in San Diego County, year over year, there's significantly more appreciation than there has been in previous years, basically because there's not as much product being put on the market. So I always like, as an entrepreneur, supply and demand. And how many people are familiar with Adam Smith's free hand? Is that anything you've all familiar with? Yeah, I see some heads going up and down, right? So I like that a lot. I like this, let supply and demand come into equilibrium. It doesn't happen overnight. The pendulum doesn't move that fast. But when, with government intervention and other people's intervention, in my opinion, they skew the natural outcome. But getting back to your more specific your question, I mean, housing is appreciating because there's less supply on the market and there's more demand. And if you look at what's going on, I would think, what's going on now versus 2 years ago, there's more of a plight to suburbia than there's, been in a long time. And as you all get married and as you all have your children, if you look to where that generation of millennial is moving, they're moving to the burbs again because they're looking for the school districts. They're looking for, space, comfort zone. So a lot of things are constantly in play. So please don't read the headlines, because the headlines are selling the newspapers or their blog or whatever they're doing. Look at the facts and look at the real absorption numbers. As far as commercial space, I can tell you that I just saw the third quarter numbers that have come out. And if you look at year over year, the sublease space, which would be tenants giving back space, that if they're over 10,000 square feet, it basically are no new spaces on the market pre-COVID versus post-COVID. If you look at the spaces that are under 10,000 square feet, which are the more local credit, mom and pop, probably not as well capitalized, maybe got a little over their skis as they saw the economy doing things, that's where the problem is occurring in the vacancy and the give back. Does that address the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect.
Anybody else at this point on real estate or anything else on their mind?
Well, you kind of answered my question already. I wanted to know how COVID is affecting your business, and you kind of already went through it a little bit. Maybe you could go over a little bit more.
Yeah, no, Elizabeth, that's a good question. So just yesterday, I'll give you an example, and I'm not trying to pitch politics. I'm just going to say what facts are, because facts are friendly, I like to say, is that a tenant called me up that hadn't paid me rent in 2 months. They're about 10,000 feet in an 80,000 square foot office building. They said, you know what? I just read what the governor came down with, and you can't kick me out of my space until March of next year. So I'm not going to pay you rent until March of next year. And they owe me $30,000 a month. And without their rent, I don't meet my debt service. I have to come out of pocket. And I said, well, that's not fair. You're supposed to pay me my rent. I still have to turn on the lights for you. I still have to keep the water on for you. I still have to keep the air conditioning on. I have to pay your taxes and my mortgage, but you're not paying my rent. How's that fair? And he says, it doesn't matter if it's fair, Scott. It's because the governor put this mandate, so I don't have to pay you till next March. So either you let me out of my lease and I'll give you 1 or 2 months payments, or else I'm not going to pay you till next March, and my lease comes due in October, and I'm not going to let you show the space to any tenants for sublease unless you let me out of my lease. That seem like a fair outcome? Does that sound like Adam Smith?
That's not fair at all, honestly. Wow, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So I mean, the food chain always goes down, right? The certain little fish eats the bigger fish keeps going up. And so when that gets disrupted and we're not getting relief from our lenders or SDG&E can call me up and say, hey, Scott, you don't have to pay your bills anymore, COVID, we'll let it slide. it causes a real hardship on ownership. And we think it's temporary. We think we'll be back to normal, at least if not by the first quarter next year, by the middle of next year, subject to government leaving us alone.
What are your thoughts, by the way, on doing real estate and building that out of California versus in California right now, comparing like the tax costs and like how much it costs to like build property here and make money off it here versus like a place like Nevada, let's say, or Arizona? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So, I mean, I think I can open up to more than just real estate, because for the rest of you that aren't in real estate, but you're entrepreneurs, I mean, what is business looking for as when they invest? Predictability, right? And with predictability, we're always evaluating the risk versus return ratio. Because if you go to work every day and someone guarantees you they're going to pay you $100,000 a year, versus you're the person that goes to work and maybe you're guaranteed 25, but you might wait 150, is that fair? Well, that's kind of what entrepreneurs choose to do. So I think that's a lot of what's going on in that regard. Does that address it, or you want me to go further?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anybody else?
I have a question. How has it been to be working with your family? Because I know you took over the company along with your brother, Jeff, right?
Yeah, right, correct.
How was that working with your brother?
It's the best thing in the world. I mean, my brother and I are best friends. Anything that we don't own with our wives, we own with each other, and stuff we own with our wives, we own with each other. My first house that I bought, my brother's 2 years older than me, so he made the down payment, and we both made the same monthly mortgage payment, but he got the master bedroom because he made the down payment. And then we sold that and made some money and bought another one. So, I mean, to me, working with family, because our dad started our company, is the best thing in the world. You trust family unequivocally. You can have the biggest disagreement at 10 o'clock, and at 11:30, you want to go to lunch together. So, and I think that for you all, I would say that, I mean, college is the best time in your life. You're not going to get the opportunity to meet the amount of people that you're meeting. I mean, if every one of you, this would be a good challenge for all of you, is that if every one of you could commit that you would know a little bit about everybody on this call and take an interest in their life and get to know them, those relationships will come back to you in spades, because life is about your network and the people you know. And when you know more people and you can have a warm call versus a cold call, people open their heart. So especially as your students, you have a business card that you'll never have when you get out of college, because right now you're students. And anybody that has half a heart will open it up to you. So I strongly encourage you all to meet as many people as you can that are like me. Anytime you meet with a professional, that you ask them, can you give me 2 names of people that I could just go and talk to, buy them coffee, have lunch with them, and then when you meet with them, you get 2 more names. And especially for you freshmen and sophomores, if you can do that consistently and meet 50 professionals a year, by the time you graduate, look how many warm calls. Your job ask is so simple because people already know you. And what is the world about? Relationships, right? What do people know? They can recommend people they know. So the more you meet people, the more you embrace other people, the more you build your network, I think the further you'll go. And when you go out and go to association meetings, or you're something where there's professionals, my challenge to you is, don't hang around the people you know. You already know them. Don't be rude and disrespectful. Say hi, but move on and look for the oldest person in the room, or the person that looks like they've got the most responsibilities. Show them your business card. Tell them you're a student. Tell them you want to meet. Tell them your interest, and they will open their heart to you and welcome you in. I've got some more stuff you want, I mean, that I can just, let me just like share, and then maybe that'll beg some more questions if you'd like.
I would
So,
like to say that that is totally true with the networking. My mom is a very good networker, and she always says, you go to these mixers, you don't talk to your friends, you say 5 minutes, talk to everyone, and then move on. 5 minutes.
yeah, mom's right. Mom's right.
I'll tell her, don't worry.
Good for you. So, the other thing, some things is that, um, the for me, like if you're going to do a new business, you entrepreneurs or you real estate business students, you always create a business plan, right? Because you want to know where you're going to go, how you're going to raise capital, how you're going to get from here to there. But I think a lot of people are short-sighted and don't create a personal and business/professional plan and write it down. I know you all will tell me it's in my head. I know what I'm going to do, but put it down in paper and maybe challenge yourself and put what's my 1, my 2, my 5, my 10, and my 20-year personal and business goals and objectives, and make sure they're attainable and you're accountable to them because it's your plan. I mean, if we're all driving to Nevada tomorrow, are we jumping in the car? No, we're going to know where we're going to stay, what hotels we're going to see grandma. Are we going to, we're going to go Grand Canyon. So let's make that plan and then, check it quarterly and update it annually at least so that you know where you're going. And if your plan changes, fine. They constantly do, but at least have the plan and be accountable to yourself because you'll find yourself accomplishing, in my opinion, more of your goals and objectives sooner than if you just keep it loosey-goosey in your head. And
I
I
have
think,
one question.
uh-huh.
Sorry. Just like since I'm a senior, I'll be graduating soon. How was those beginning years after college for you? Like
Tumultuous.
how? Yeah.
I mean, when I, again, not to, brag or make light of anything. When I graduated from college, prime rate was 21%. What's prime rate right now, somebody?
I think maybe like 60 or 70 something.
No, prime rate's like 4.25%, 2%, guys. When my first mortgage, when I bought my first house out of college, my mortgage rate was 15%. I'm not that old. It's just, it was a different time. Jimmy Carter was our president. Inflation was 12%, not 2%. And so it was hard. I mean, I didn't know, you imagine going in the real estate business and your construction loan interest rate is 25% instead of 4%. You could see how real estate doesn't get accomplished in those times. But those were the most learning times. When there's challenges, it's a great time to learn versus coming in at the top of the curve and it's easy. So I'd much rather learn from the school of hard knocks. I would say, kind of on that, going back, Emma, to the budget side of that if you do that kind of a budget with your personal goals and objectives, just like you do for your businesses that you would be starting up, that you'll see that, if mom and dad aren't paying for stuff, it's hard to live for less than $30,000 a year. And, and if you really want to even have any quality of life, you need 50. And therefore, you kind of really need 70. And most of the graduates that I work with that are like, I don't know if they're pushing themselves and they're asking a lot of questions, and we're helping them with internships and getting involved. I mean, most of those students, we're helping them get out of school, they're making $70,000 to $100,000 the first year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then from up there, they're going to 6 figures and beyond. So
I have a question about your, like, when you were back in school.
mm-hmm.
Do you think you learned a lot from real estate, like as a major, or do you think you learned basically everything the day you graduated, like everything from then?
Well, no, it's definitely C, but I mean, I had an I learned how to build homes. I was a carpenter and dug ditches for 5 or 6 years, making $3 an hour. Then then I went and got my business degree, and I worked in a bank as a loan officer in the real estate department. I worked as a project engineer in a construction company. And then when I graduated, I went into brokerage and development with a company up in Newport Beach that did both. So it's, I mean, it's, I would, I mean, between, when you start college, in my opinion, and 35, the growth curve is just straight up if you're applying yourself. And I can't say that like what I learned at 21 was more valuable than at 28 or 35, but keep putting more tools in your toolbox constantly so that then you can fix more stuff and you're better prepared. And when you're younger, I would say any experience is better than no experience, right? My dad always taught me, like, what's the worst decision, entrepreneurs? No decision. Never make no decision. You have to make a decision, you implement it, you made it based upon the best facts you had at the time, knowing with the time you had, and then you learn from that decision. If it's wrong, then you tact. I mean, don't be so proud you can't change. God, we're not public companies. That's what's so great about being an entrepreneur. You make the wrong decision, you look in the mirror the next day, you go, wrong decision, let's tack, let's do it different.
I have a question. What would you say is a good investment strategy for us as like students as far as real estate goes, whether it be right now or kind of when we get out of college, come into a little bit more money, or just average right now? Like, what is a good idea to like get our feet wet, kind of, as far as that goes, as far as real estate goes and investments?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you rent, how much of ownership do you have? None, right? And 100% of nothing is how much? Nothing, right? And so if you think about, let's just say a typical house is, we'll do our math easy so everybody can do it in their head. Let's say we buy our first house and it's $500,000, and we put 20% down. How much are we putting down?
100,000.
Right. Okay. And let's say that house that we bought only appreciates 5% in that year. 5%. So what's the 5% appreciation on our $500,000 house?
25 grand.
What was our down payment?
Oh, on the $5,000 down payment?
No, we put down 100 grand,
100.
right?
Oh, 100 grand.
So what's our return on our investment? 25%. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
How much? 25%, right? And currently you still get a write-off for your property taxes and mortgage to a certain cap limit with a $100 million mortgage, which would never be for that. So in my opinion, you need to get into the equity game, and you need to get into the equity game as soon as possible. And don't take this wrong, but it's if you're having Starbucks every day with avocado toast and spending a 20 or 25 bucks, it's time to stop that. It's time to make your coffee at home, buy an avocado, put it on your toast, and save money so that you can build up some equity to buy your first property. And it's not about leasing the new BMW and all that other stuff. It's about saving money and having a quality of life. And when you're younger, just start saving, because money compounds. Anybody know the rule of 7? Come on, somebody in finance on this.
Every 7 years, your money doubles.
At 10%, every 7 years, your money doubles. You hear that? At 10%, every 7 years, it doubles. So imagine if you start saving at your age, what you can have when you're 40 versus the avocado toast and the Starbucks coffee. It's not worth it.
I have a question. Back to when you were young again. What do you think?
I'm still young.
No, I know. I asked the question about college. What do you think your biggest mistake was as a young realtor? And then it kind of, again, as like a new investor, what are your some like a number one tip you have, or like a number one don't do this?
Well, I'll go with the latter question first, if I can, is that the kind of back to what we were just talking about, that if you, I mean, in anything like in life, in my opinion, or in real estate, it's kind of easy to get over leveraged. And if we have a property that's worth 500,000, we'll just choose again, and you have a 90% loan on it, and then the market has a correction of 15%, your equity is upside down. And if you don't have adequate savings, not only for you and the family to live, and take the debt service when the governor tells you that your tenants don't have to pay you rent because you over leveraged, that's the downfall. I would say that there's seldom a bad investment, especially in real estate, but there's tremendously bad capital structures. It's all about how you structure your capital. You do not want to over leverage yourself ever. All the real estate books that say, buy it and then put a bigger loan on it and put a bigger loan on it, they just live in a fallacy. You need to constantly save. And look at going into this COVID issue. If you have a family of 4 and you don't have savings for 6 to 12 months with no income, are you well prepared? No, right? Everybody would agree with that, right? I hope everybody's head goes up and down and says the first thing I do is save 6 to 12 months worth of my expenditures with no income. Then what about my income properties? What if they quit paying me for 6 or 12 months? So the biggest mistake you can make in real estate is over leveraging, and it's easy to be a buyer and it's easy to pay too much, because when you pay the most, you're the buyer. So you better have more market knowledge than somebody else, or you overpaid and I'm going to buy it from you when the market turns down at a discount. Cash is king, right? You never want to over leverage in life, never with your financing. You want to have, honesty and integrity above all. Those are the most important things. You never want to lie. You always want to be humble, right? It's nice to be important. It's more important to be nice, everybody. We need to remember that, right? Nobody's any better than anybody else. You may be better at certain things, but you're no better than anybody else. Say what you mean what you say. God forbid you follow through and do what you said you were going to do. Do you think that builds character and gives you a good business reputation? Of course. I mean, my mom used to tell us, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real deal, everybody. The real deal. You get one chance at this. Maximize it. Hollis, what are you thinking?
No, I'm just that's just a lot of keys, and I appreciate it. I'm just agreeing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So how's it relate to you a little bit?
As of right now, I'm a student, so I can't really relate to it, but I appreciate it. I appreciate all of the game you're speaking to us.
Okay, thanks.
Also, I have a question. So how important is social media to your business?
I don't do it at all. I don't have a website for my company. I'm not on any social media at all.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
But we've been around for a long time, and our relationships, be it from debt or equity or brokers or elected officials or senior staff, are all from that network that we've worked on for many, many years. So I don't have a social footprint because I don't want the attention.
I have another question as well.
Okay, go ahead.
So did you always know that you wanted to go into real estate, or was it any time that you kind of felt pushed by your family that you had to, or maybe you wanted to do something else, or?
No, those are good question. I don't, I know when I went to high school, remember they in the yearbook, they would ask you what you aspired to do and what would you learn the most. And I know I put it on my high school, but I wanted to help construct the world. So I knew from a long time ago that I just love the physical attachment to real estate. And I mean, there's a lot of sense and pride. You think about all the, like when you build a home or apartment, or us more in employment spaces, and people go and for their job or a shopping centers, and they enjoy that. And you can go back and look at that for decades, and kind of look back and think like, yeah, where was the city at, and where was the path of growth? And, you know, look how we help plan that, because we're working with city fathers, you're working with, you know, politicians, the real estate business, you're very heavy. You have to be in politics because politics is involved in what you do. Doesn't mean you get any favors, but at least hopefully they don't lose you in the queue, which is nice. So, no, I think that's how I would last it. You know, I would say, you know, a couple of things else I want to just maybe add is that, what time have we got? Okay, we're doing good. Is that, you know, I really feel for you all with going to college with the current situation, because college is one of the most fun times of your life. And all of you on here being with each other is just, for me, was so great. And to build relationships with each other, that where you have that bond when you're younger is way different than when you meet someone you're 40 and you try to bond. Trust me, it's different unless they're a very special person. So I would just challenge you again to like get to know each other, invest in each other. I know in college it's awkward, especially on the male-female stuff, and that gets confusing, but just treat each other as people and get to know each other and help each other and get to be friends, and get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Push yourself to get out of where you're comfortable, and then like take advantage of some of the other opportunities. Like SDSU has a Toastmaster program. I don't know how many are familiar with Toastmasters, but if anybody participates, you will only be a better orator and speaker and feel more comfortable within your own skin. There is a program through a state that does that. I always think that in business and entrepreneurship, take a couple psychology classes. It's all about the psychology, everybody. It's the marketing, right? It's how you sell yourself. Everything you do is marketing. Everything you do is marketing. Everything you do is marketing. Everybody should know marketing. You should know how to balance your checkbook, you know, and take those extracurricular activities while you can, whether it's through your associations, your programs. I mean, you think you're busy now? Wait till you get out of college and you work 70 and 80 hours a week. And right now you're going to look back and go, my God, we were playing tennis and going messing around and thinking you were working hard. It's just, I mean, it's hard relative, but I would say it only gets more intense if you want it to. And if you don't, the other thing I would say to you that like, don't, I mean, if you don't want to push yourself and you're happy wherever you're happy, don't be upset. Don't think you're less than. Accept that and just be fine with that. But then don't be jealous of envious of others that have pushed themselves harder or taken more risk and put more on the line, and they end up with something different, and then say, well, how'd they get that? Or think that they shouldn't have got it. I mean, you know, mostly you get what effort you put into life. And so some people take more risks, they're going to make more, hopefully. And if not, why take the risk? You entrepreneurs, right? Why take the risk if everybody's going to get the same at the end of the day? I would say, you know, get to know the dean of your school, get to know your professors, get to know the head of your associations, because those professors and deans, they get leads from the business community. And if you know them, then you're what? You have your network built. It's a warm lead, not a cold call. So make them your friends. You know, stop in there every couple weeks. You're not kind of like, you don't have to be your best friend, but you want them to know your name on, you know, very much so. Just like I mean, as a younger generation, you guys probably do a lot on the internet. I mean, I would still encourage you to go into your local branch bank and know the branch manager. I mean, if you look on the internet or you go in and you see the branch manager's name and it's, you know, Sally Smith, And every time you walk by Sally's office and you're going into the teller and you go, "Hi, Sally," by the fourth time, she's going to know that's Emma. And she's going to repeat your name. And if she doesn't, she's going to feel like a heel. And then when you go to get that loan or that line of credit, you're not just a number on the internet. Life is about relationships. Personalize everything. So it's a personal decision, not a number decision. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then I also have another question. Were you in any like societies at SDSU?
I was in the Greek system, which was all that existed at the time. So no, and thank God I had strong parental supervision and discipline. But I mean, what you all get with each other doing this is so amazing, in my opinion. And the access you have to working professionals like myself and anybody you want to call on is just, just carpe diem every day, and seize that even remotely, and just call people up and they'll take the time. You have to do that. So no to your answer, but if this had been, I'd like to say I would have, but I was involved in athletics more so. So I'd say also make sure you take time for yourselves, whether you want to meditate, exercise, do your hobbies, just family and friends are always first, in my opinion. And, embrace life openly with a passion, smile. That's why I picked on a couple of you earlier, Hoss, because I can see even with the multi-screen, you got a big infectious smile. So good for you. Look others in the eye when you're talking to them. Remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's probably a reason for that. So be a really, really good listener. And as my dad would say, wise is the man who learns from experience, but wiser is the man who learns from the experiences of others. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Scott. So I know that in life there's a lot of adversity that people go through, and then with your adversity that you have gone through in your life, like what was one of the biggest adversities that you've gone through, and what was your motivation to get you to be a better entrepreneur and a man?
I would say on the business side of things, to the entrepreneurial side of your question, our company was 32 people, and I was 29 years old, and my dad had a heart attack and couldn't work anymore, and I had to step up and take over and run the company. That was an awakening. That was an epiphany day to deal and with my mom and dad being divorced and 8 children relying on the company to get things done, and that fell into my court. So I had to step up.
How old were you then?
29.
Oh, wow.
Don't regret it at all. Like I said, change is constant. You just have to embrace it, accept it. There's a lot of stuff going on out there right now. I think you've just, as students, you're the smart ones. Like one of my sayings I always like to say to people is, facts are friendly, right? You and I can disagree on something, but if your position is based on fact and mine is based on fact, and we're just of a different opinion, and nobody's better or worse than the other person. We're just of a different opinion. But if you're talking something that's not factual and you're trying to put that up against my facts, I'm not really buying into your position very much.
Thank you.
Whatever it is.
So my parents have been in San Diego since 1970s. And it's grown quite a bit from where they grew up. The city's evolved, it's changed, new developments are coming up. What area of San Diego do you think is the next big area? So, back in the day, I remember I went to Helix High School in La Mesa. The hill behind there wasn't developed yet, and my dad used to tell me him and his friends used to climb it. And now if you look at there's $1 million homes. So what area do you think has very strong potential to be the next developmental area in San Diego?
Yeah. So what you're talking about, we used to call greenfield development, which was more, larger subdivisions where they were 500,000 acre, 2,000 acre master plan communities like Del Mar Heights or UTC or Forest Ranch or Rancho Bernardo or Carmel Mountain Ranch. Those types of communities for San Diego are a day thing of our past. At this point in time, as far as our real estate goes, we're basically somewhere between without redevelopment, we're somewhere about 90% built out with our capacity. So I think the future is all in redevelopment. So if you look at where existing infrastructure is, that's highly probable where you'll see new development. So if you look at what's going on, you'll see the Midway District and down by the Spay Wars facility, which is going to be the new transportation hub and the new, couple million square feet for the Navy, and then going down into the sports arena, huge redevelopment area. If you see what's going on, SDSU Mission Valley, huge redevelopment area. See what's transitioning through Mission Valley. And then if you go up to Kearney Mesa, for those that are familiar with the county, with all the convergence of the freeway there, Kearney Mesa is tremendously ripe for redevelopment. So the future is mostly in redevelopment of existing real estate and taking it so it's more horizontal than it used to be, and getting more density out of the real estate in order to accommodate the housing needs, because we're still just, in order to meet the demand, we should be placing about 20,000 new homes a year in the county, and we're down in the single digit thousands. So, and that problem just continues to manifest each year, which is why the cost of housing goes up. And when you look at the cost of housing, the BIA, the Building Industry Association, if you look at some of the studies they've done and others, about 40% of the cost of a typical new construction in this county are fees and exactions from the municipalities. So the new homeowner pays it. I mean, as entrepreneurs, you guys and gals will learn and see that at the end of the day, if something goes up in cost, at the end of the day, the consumer pays. I mean, there's no way, because the margins in between keep getting squeezed, and there's a scarce commodity of capital, and there's all kinds of different businesses competing for that capital. And if it's a bigger return, supply and demand just comes into play. So it's just, we're going to be chasing it forever unless we can increase the supply, which is not probable in my opinion, as hard as we try.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So you moved your company because it was first in Newport, right? When your father had it.
Yep. Yeah, we moved to Carlsbad in the early mid '80s.
Right. So why did you do that transfer or that relocation?
Yeah. So in Orange County at the time, there were two major landowners, the Irvine Company and a company called the Coal Company, KOLL, Don Coal's Company. And they, I mean, at the time, rents were for industrial space for like 35 cents, more or less. And if they controlled supply and demand, again, they controlled 40% of the market, like of the space, and a tenant came into the market, the Emma Company came in and they wanted a million square feet, they would, instead of doing 35 cents, they'd go, well, we'll do it for 33. And as the entrepreneur, we couldn't make that 2 penny difference, or you'd lose money. And so they just continued to monopolize it. So therefore, we saw the opportunity to move to North San Diego County, where the ownership was much more dispersed, instead of controlled by one mega company. And if you kind of look at what's happened, unfortunately, the Irvine Company followed us down, and now they control UTC. They control downtown. They're starting to control Mission Valley, not control it, but they're starting to accumulate real estate in Del Mar Heights. So those markets, high probability even today, UTC and downtown, if there's a big tenant, the Irvine Company will win that business because they can. And then they'll buy your building from you after they beat you down so much that you don't have any staying power.
Right.
And I don't mean to talk bad about the Irvine company, but that's just the fact.
Yeah. And another thing, what is like the biggest, like the one thing that you're most proud of in your career, like hands down?
Business or personal?
Business and personal.
Personal, getting married, my beautiful wife, for sure. Business, working since I was 20. So my dad died 3 years ago and I was 22, 32, 42, working 35 years with my dad and my brother, and the fun and excitement of working together and what we created, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, nice.
Nothing comes close to that.
All right, thank you so much.
Just like looking for internships right now, would you stay away from office and tenant rep brokers just with the kind of stuff slowing down, or is it kind of something you can learn from with people, like the example you said about not paying rent?
So would I not want to work for a tenant rep broker? Is that the question?
Yeah, it's like for being a student, like seeking out internships or different kinds of opportunities, would you look at something more like biotech space instead?
Well, biotech is white hot. I mean,
Yeah.
white hot right now. And I mean, if you look at what IQHQ just bought, downtown in Manchester's Gateway project, they're trying to do 1.5 million square feet. The old Horton Plaza is trying to be 1 million square feet of bio. I mean, everybody's into the bio business. So bio would be great. But I would say at your all age, any internship with somebody that has high integrity and would be a good role model and mentor is an excellent opportunity, because you just need to learn what you like and don't like and what your passion is. Because most of us have to work for a living, but if it's your passion, it's sure a lot more fun than if it's something you hate going to do every day. So just get out there. Just get out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Would you say there's like a certain state on the rise? Because I remember like 5 years ago, Colorado was like this big booming state everyone said to invest in, and now it's kind of too expensive for like the common realtor. So do you think, if you had to guess, like the next 5 to 10 years or 15 to 20, there's gonna be a new state in America that everyone's trying to invest in?
But what do you mean for the common realtor? Because a realtor, capital R, is a residential real estate agent.
I mean, like, it's like, if they're like Colorado, it used to be like average of like, it was just like in the 70, 80,000s. And now like my brother's out there and it's like 120, 130,000 in some areas that were like 80, like 10 years ago. So
do you, in 5 years, are there going to be more people or less people?
there's gonna be way more people.
Right. And so if there's more people and those people want houses, is that going to put pressure on values?
Yeah.
Is it going to matter? I mean, some places will probably appreciate more than others based upon lifestyle and quality of life. But overall, can you see it not appreciation? I mean, if inflation's 2%, I've got to believe, housing is going to be appreciating 5%. I mean, we used to have years in San Diego, our housing was appreciating 10 to 20% a year. And that's on your down payment of 20%. You're making 100% return on your equity. I mean, get into the equity game and don't think it has to be your, like at the coolest location where all your friends come over. Just get into it, deal with it, make sure it's good real estate, live there for a few years, sell it, make some money, and by your third place, you can have the place with Starbucks down the street to get the avocado toast. But in the meantime, make some sacrifices.
So even as like a young, like, because I'm not flush with cash, do you think I can survive in San Diego if I was trying to invest?
Well, if you have a job and you're making $60,000 to $70,000 a year, and you save some money, yeah, you're going to be able to make, because even like if you look at some of these technology companies, they're saying you don't have to work here anymore, and you can move and work remotely, but we're going to adjust your compensation to the lifestyle of where you live. So if all of a sudden you're living someplace that's 20% less, they're saying they're going to reduce your compensation. So I think there's tremendous opportunity here for those that want to make it, but there's also lots of opportunities in Austin, Salt Lake City, up in Northern California, back in Boston. I mean, there's tremendous other areas that are also wonderful opportunities.